Today I effed up by realizing the older woman I've been sleeping with for months is my coworker's mom. Throwaway account, this happened about an hour ago. So I, male 25, have been involved with an older woman, female 44, lately. It started a few months ago with the onset of coronavirus. I was on Tinder trying to find someone to hook up with during quarantine to stay safe and also kill some time. I saw this very attractive older woman and decided to swipe right because it's every 20-something-year-old's dream to hook up with a MILF. A few days go by and I get a notification that I have a new match. Wahoo! I open up the app and lo and behold it's the fine-ass cougar I was hoping for. We start chatting and flirting, it's going well. Out of nowhere she messages me and says I'm not sure how this app works, do we just meet to have fun or do we go on a date first? I was drinking coffee at the time and promptly shot it out both nostrils. My chance had come. I replied that people generally just meet up to go to the bone zone together but I'm easy either way. She replies well good because I hate formalities. I nearly shit my pants in excitement. She sends me her address and tells me she's free on Friday and to bring wine. The rest of that week was a complete blur of anxiety. I could not mess this up. So Friday comes, I show up with wine, and she's smoking hot. Better in person. We talk about music and traveling and all that, not many personal details, which would come back to haunt me, just sort of arts and culture talk. A few glasses of wine later and we're full-blown going at it like rabbits on the middle of her living room floor. I left a little while later feeling like I was the king of the entire universe and went to sleep. The next day she texts me saying how she had a great time, and it made her feel young again and blah blah blah. She says she's off every Friday and Saturday and that next week we should do the same. This has been going on for roughly 3 months, we meet up once or twice a week, go at it like animals, and then go on our merry way until one of us gets in the mood again. Sweet deal, right? Wrong. I messaged her yesterday saying that I had today off of work and asked if she wanted to meet up. She said her son was taking her out to lunch, and that I could come over at 3 p.m. She had mentioned she had a son before but didn't go any further and I didn't care to ask. So 3 p.m. comes and I'm almost at her house when she messages me that she's running late. No problem. I parked on the road and sort of just waited in my car because her car wasn't in the driveway yet. I'm sitting there listening to the radio when an oddly familiar SUV pulls into the drive. I sort of looked at it funny and then I immediately realized where I knew it from. My coworker, male 23, jumps out of the front seat, goes around to her side of the vehicle, kisses her on the cheek and a hug, and then jumps back in the car. My jaw was on the ground. He reversed out of the driveway and stupid me is sitting like a deer in the headlights in plain sight. He turns around and is 10 feet in front of my car staring directly at me. My face goes bright red and I feel like I'm going to vomit. Me and this guy work together every single day and I consider him a friend of mine. I even trained him when he started at my company. And the kicker is I've been telling him, in detail, about this older lady and he's been giving me immense kudos about it saying that it's his dream. He pulls up beside me and looks very confused, asking me what I'm doing and how funny it was we ran into each other. I panic, completely stumble over my words and pretend like I'm on the wrong street and trying to find my cousin's house. He looked skeptical but sort of shrugged it off. The whole time his mother is standing there watching us through the curtains. He directs me where to go and I pull off and then circle back once he's gone. Needless to say, I went inside and told her what was up, and we both sort of sat there in silence before I left. No boom boom today. I am now panicking, there's no way he's not going to know, right? And he's gonna realize all these wild escapades with this she-devil night mistress I've been telling him about is his mom? I already called in sick for work tomorrow because I cannot look him in the eye. We'll update if anything happens. Pray for my soul, Reddit. Revenge on a client who tried to throw me under the bus. Part 1. I was pushing 40, and I'd learned a lot of lessons in more than 10 years of legal practice. But one of the most important lessons I learned was from an older lawyer I worked for as a summer student, after the second year of law school. A lawyer has 3 duties, he told me, first to himself, second to the court, and last, the client. Always make sure you come first, and the client comes last. The reason? Because clients will screw you, he said, they'll throw you under the bus without thinking twice. I should have stayed with this lawyer, but being young and an idiot, I had to go work downtown. I'm still downtown now, and fortunately for me, I remember this lesson, and it came in handy many years later when a client did try to throw me under the bus. My client was this mid-sized company that did this and that and owned things here and there, not big enough to be listed, but it did have a pretty sizable real estate portfolio, and one day a building they owned burned to the ground. The company wanted to collect on the insurance, so they told Frank, a veteran salaryman, to deal with it. Frank was close to 60 and thought he knew what he was doing. He didn't need me to help him with the insurance claim, he told me, he had everything under control. Besides, lawyers are expensive. Some guys get off on not paying legal fees, and Frank was one of those guys who gloated over every penny that he managed not to pay to the lawyers. I dealt with Frank a lot, and he was always nickel and diming me. The insurer is going to screw you, I told Frank. It was only by luck that I even knew about the fire and the loss because Frank had not asked for my help. He'd just let it slip one day, and since then, I'd kept on top of him, trying to get him to smarten up. I'd had to fight to get him to send me the proof of loss form to ensure he hadn't messed that up. Frank screwed up a lot, and I wondered sometimes how he had a job. But the proof of loss was okay, at least, so that was one less thing to worry about. You don't know that, he said. I could tell he just wanted to get me off the phone. I'm paid to know when insurers are trying to screw my clients, I said, and the insurer is going to screw you. They've been stringing you along for ages with requests, questions and paperwork, but they aren't going to pay you. Not unless you sue them. But Frank said he knew what he was doing, that it was all under control, and besides, he got along with the adjuster so great. The limitation period expires in 2 weeks, I said, and once those 2 weeks pass, it will be too late to sue. The moment that limitation period expires, they will stop taking your calls. You'll get a final email saying sorry, you're out of time, and that will be that. Don't leave this till the last minute. Let me see right now, and you'll have the money in no time. Frank was like sure, fine, whatever, don't bother me, I got this blah blah blah, and he got off the phone as soon as he could. I sent him the usual email with clear warnings and recommendations, which he ignored. I sent the email again, and then again as the limitation period approached, and again a couple of days before the deadline. Revenge on a client who tried to throw me under the bus. Part 2. I'm going to be at trial, and you won't be able to reach me, my final email said, but you have to sue. You have other firms on your list, so pick one and sue. He didn't bother to reply, and I went off to do my trial. The trial lasted a couple of weeks, and no email from Frank. Then a month passed, and another month, and still no email. I figured he must have sorted things out. Maybe Frank was right after all, I said to myself, and then my phone rang. It was Frank. Remember that fire insurance thing we spoke about? We'd only spoken about it like a dozen times. I figured he was calling up to gloat, so I cut to the chase. So they paid out. That's great, Frank. You were right. He asked me what I was talking about, and could see a copy of the claim. What claim? I said. The claim against the insurer. You know, that claim. Does that mean the insurer didn't pay? I said. He hung up on me, and then a few minutes later, my computer dinged, and there was Frank's email, talking about how we spoke, and he told me to sue, and he was worried when I hadn't sent him a copy of the claim, so he was following up to get a copy of the claim. I emailed him back. I take it that the insurer didn't pay you, just like I told you they wouldn't, and now that the limitation period has expired, they told you to jump in the lake, leaving you with a loss in the millions. Is that it? I'd made a mistake by not going over Frank's head when he wouldn't listen to me, but if I'd gone over Frank's head, I never would have received another file from him, so I didn't. But that was then, and this was now, so I CC'd Frank's boss and his boss's boss, plus I CC'd Bill, the client's in-house counsel. Bill acknowledged my email right away and called me later that day. Frank messed up, he said, we know that. He's an idiot. So what do we do? So his excuses didn't work? Nope, Bill explained that they'd summoned Frank to a boardroom, but his story didn't add up, given all the warnings I'd sent him. Besides, there would have been no reason for him to keep emailing the insurer if he'd told me to sue. Once the file went to legal counsel, Frank's role was over. The company knew Frank was bullshitting them. So that's it, then? Bill said, we just lost a couple of $1,000,000? It's okay, I said, explaining that when I realized that Frank was going to mess up, I issued a claim against the insurer. Because I'd made Frank send me the proof of loss a while earlier, I had enough information that I could use to preserve the cause of action. Not a great claim and is short on details, but good enough. You sued without instructions? Bill said. Lawyers aren't supposed to sue without instructions because if you do that, you're personally liable for whatever costs the other side incurs. It's a big deal to sue without instructions. Yup, I said, I sued without instructions. I pulled up a copy of the claim and emailed it to him as we spoke. It's a little rough, I said, but we can always amend. Thank God, Bill said, can I leave it with you? Of course, he could. The insurer was a sitting duck, and I knew I'd collect from them, no problem. A few days later, I got a call from another guy who worked for the client, a guy I didn't usually deal with. They had a situation and needed my help. I usually deal with Frank, I said, what's up? What was up was that Frank got called into another meeting, and they handed him a one-page letter, and then he put his little office things in a box, and security walked him past his coworkers to the elevator and escorted him downstairs to the parking lot. Bye-bye, Frank. He was too old to get another job, or at least, not a decent one. It was a life-changing event for Frank, but for me, he was just an anecdote, a cautionary tale that I tell young lawyers sometimes over beers, maybe too often, because I'm getting on in years and I have my favorite stories. I wasn't trying to get revenge on Frank, not at all, and I would have felt a bit sorry for him if he hadn't been trying to throw me under the bus. But the guy who replaced him was great and never nickel and dimed me, so it was all good.